Howdy everybody, we are at the Villa Azul here at the Dusit Thani Guam Resort, and who better to have a candid conversation about breast cancer than from survivors. And joining me now is breast cancer survivor Zena Pangilinan-Charfris, Donna Baker, Christy San Augustine, and from the Island Cancer Center registered nurse Crystal 80. Thank you ladies for joining me. And let's just begin with sharing your personal stories, how you found out when you were diagnosed with cancer.
So for me, it was 18 days before my 46th birthday in 2016, February. I had received a call from my doctor who wanted to share with me the results of my ultrasound and biopsy that was conducted in December 2015. So she shared with me that I had differentiated ductal carcinoma, and at first I was like, wow, what is that? Then she said it was breast cancer. And so, of course, I was still in shock. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react. And so the first place I went to was to my girlfriend's office, who was in Agana at the time. And I shared with her about the news. And so she says, okay, let's just take it a day at a time. Let's Google. She likes to Google stuff. So she says, let's Google it. So we did. We took some time off and we went to have coffee and trying to absorb everything. My husband was calling me. I didn't answer my calls. And then when it finally hit me, I said, okay, let me answer my phone call. So he asked me what was going on, why wasn't I answering my phone, and so I shared the news with him. And he says, why don't you come home now and we can talk about it? And I said, I don't want to come home yet. It's, I'm not ready to come home. So he says, okay, when you're ready. So a couple hours passed. Then I decided to text on my family group chat that, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and please don't call me right now. I don't have any answers if you have questions for me. I went home about maybe 6 o'clock in the evening, and so my whole family was there. My children were at my house. My mom was there. My husband, of course, and that's when we started to talk about it. So it was difficult for me at first, but as we started to talk about it, my kids started coming around more often. It became easier for me to accept that I had been diagnosed with cancer.
Was it like that for you when you told your family? Was it, the initial shock? Or Donna, you're giggling.
Mine, for me, I was getting married. I was 32 years old, starting my life off, and I went to a doctor on Guam, and I said, I want to get pregnant. My wedding weekend, I want to have children right away, the reason why we're getting married. And during the exam, I said, I have a lump in my breast. And he goes, don't worry about it, you're too young, whatever, don't worry about it. It's just probably nothing. So we went off happily on our wedding weekend, and I had a pain in my foot, so I saw our family doctor in California on our destination wedding, and I mentioned it to him as I was exiting the exam for my foot. I had Morton's neuroma, and thank goodness for Morton's neuroma, because I mentioned it to him in the hallway, and I said the doctor in Guam said it was no big deal, and he felt it, and he goes, you're having a mammogram tomorrow. And I said, no, I'm going to get married the day after. I need to go to Northern California and bring my wedding dress. Yeah. And so we were so young, we were 32 years old, we didn't think anything of it. And I told my husband, my fiance at the time, I said, Jude, go pick up your tuxedo, go pick up my wedding dress, drop me off at the clinic, pick me up in about 2 hours, it'll all be done. 2 hours later, he found me on the curb, completely hysterical and crying, because they knew instantly it was cancer, just by the mammogram. And my sister was a radiologist at the time, and they called her down in San Diego, and for them to call her even before telling me, you knew it was bad. And I wasn't so much upset about having cancer, I was upset about ruining my wedding weekend. Right, the reality of the, wait, what do you mean? I have to fit into my dress, and they're like, no, you have to cancel your wedding, you're going into surgery tomorrow. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'll go to surgery on Monday. So I got married, and then it just started snowballing. But you know, you still think at 32 you're invincible. You can survive anything, and they have you in the States. The protocol is you have to go to another doctor and you have to get another analysis, and then you get to make your decision. And Jude and I were like, no, did what you did. We're on the internet. This is how we're going to beat it. Let's do it. Let's start the treatment. Coming back the day after our wedding, they're cutting me open. They're going to cut the rest of it out. And we were on it, and they're like, you haven't gone through the phases. You need to go through the shock, the acceptance, the family awareness, the denial. You need to do it. I'm like, no, we're going right to treatment. Let's go. Let's get this done. And so, yeah, it was, I still didn't believe it, but I didn't think, I was like, there was no doubt in my mind that we were going to beat this because I didn't have another option. Yeah. I was just married. I was 32. And it's not going to take me.
What about you, Christy? Tell me about the support that you had, because you know, we've talked before. You actually have family history, right, of breast cancer?
Yes, I do. And actually, yeah, I found out when I was 38, and again, it was a shock. You know, a shock, but not unexpected, only because of the history on my mom's side of the family. The initial shock, but then my daughter is actually the one who was in denial. She wouldn't accept it. She's like, no way, you know, we're getting a second opinion, you know, and all that. I said, honey, if it wasn't in our family, if it's not in the history, then okay, maybe a second opinion. But because it is, and you know, we've lost so many family members, I said, I'm gonna take this and run with it. I said, I can't wait. So literally we found out on a Saturday I had cancer. The following Friday at my first chemo. I was not waiting, and from there, like you said, snowball, right? It just went into it, but I said, I'm gonna beat this because I have 2 younger children that I want, you know, young children, and I want to be there for them. I still want to live. Yeah.
Well, you know, Crystal, for those of you, our viewers who don't know, she's actually a survivor of skin cancer, right? But in the patients that you deal with at Island Cancer Center, I guess what sort of advice do you tell them?
You know, it can be a very difficult time for people. You know, you're with them in their most vulnerable and difficult time. So sometimes they don't want to really hear advice. You know, you of course share as much medical knowledge and advice as you can in that sense. But I think for us at the clinic, just giving them time to kind of process with you and to just kind of sit down with them and let them verbally process what's going on, their experience. I think that's really beneficial for people. And then also just kind of providing an environment where they can come in and they're safe at the clinic and they can just know that they're not alone. I think that's just a huge empowerment tool to come in and see other people and, oh, you know, they're going through something that's really similar to me. They're struggling or they're joyous, they've completed treatment, you know. So those are huge things that I think that our patients can take away.
You know, speaking of treatment, I'm just curious, how I guess, difficult was it to go through chemo?
For me, it wasn't difficult at all. The most difficult part of chemo is being hooked up to your port with the tubes, where the medication is injected in chemo. For me, the hardest part of it would be when the nurse would miss the port. That's the most painful. Other than that, there was nothing at all. That was my experience.
No, I had the chemo I had was not available in Guam. And one of the things that I'm so happy there are the cancer centers now, because I was diagnosed 18 years ago. And at the time, the type of chemo they wanted to give me was basically, they just said, look, we're going to take you on the bridge of basically trying to kill everything in your body before we're going to get it back, because at 32 years old, if you're going to get cancer again. It's just kind of a fact, and you're going to see it again in your life. So we're going to basically take you to the point of you're not going to survive, and you can barely survive, and then we're going to let you recover from there and hopefully kill as much as we can. So I had to have my chemo in the States at the time. And the hardest thing is you want to be around people you know. You want to be around the positives. And if someone you know is going through cancer treatment, my biggest advice is give them photo albums of reminding them the reason why they're fighting. So while they're getting the treatment, we did east and west. My husband and I are and he was always about, we have cancer. So we would actually picture us having a family together, growing old together. It was a very more of a, you need to focus on the positive and say, this is going into my body, and yes, it's killing me, but it's going to make me live. So instead of trying to reject it and say, I just got to vomit all this out, because that's what you end up doing, is it's medicine, it's healing me, and looking at photo albums and the reason why you want to be around. And being around loved ones is so important for the actual healing to take place. I don't, you know, you both were treated on Guam.
Yes.
And you're very fortunate to be around your family members.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest part.
What about you, Christy?
Mine, painful is the sores in my mouth. I had sores in my mouth.
Yeah.
So that was, and so it was hard to eat. I always tasted metal. So lemon drops was my best friend. That's every time I felt that taste, I just popped those in. It was always in my bag. Every bag I had lemon drops. So that's something I think people need to, you know, remember and think about.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you guys lose your hair during treatment?
I was bolder than my dad.
Did you guys wear a wig or?
Yes, I did.
Or-
I wore a wig for like a day.
Yeah, it was
It's
too
too
hot.
hot. It's too hot. I was like, you know, it was beautiful. My sister-in-law gave it to me. You know, she battled cancer the year before I did, and I was like, you know, she said, "Hey, Chris, I have this. You know, try it." And it was exactly the way my hair is now.
Oh, wow.
It was. So it didn't. And I even went to work and nobody noticed at the office. I would just kind of go in and be like, "Anything different? You see anything different?" They're like, "No, what's going on?" I said, "I'm wearing a wig." They're like, "No way!" You know, like
I
that.
think I was one of them.
I know. I think I went to everybody. I was like, "Anything different?" And they're like, "No, what's going on?" And I said, "I'm wearing a wig." So, but again, it was too hot for here.
Yeah.
So I ended up using, learning how to use. I would wear a beanie and then get the saran. I mean, the wraps.
The wraps.
Yeah, and I would just
turbans.
Yeah, turbans, and then I just braid it, you know, and then have it hang down so it looks like hair.
I tried it, and we were picking pumpkins out at a pumpkin patch in the States, and I walked out and it was so hot, and I was standing in the parking lot and I whipped off the wig and threw it back in the car, and there was almost a car accident. The car that was driving in like slammed on its brake, and everybody was like, because it just, you know, I just whipped my hair right off, and then I'm like, I never wore it, and everyone thought I was Sinead O'Connor. People would comment like, "Great haircut." I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, I'll just go with it. I walked around bald. I was like, look, I'm not gonna hide it.
Yeah.
What
You look
about
green as it is, so.
What about a mastectomy? Have any of you done a mastectomy?
Yes, I had a bilateral mastectomy. Yeah, I just said, just take them both. It was only on my left breast, but I said I can deal with that. My husband wanted me just healthy. He just said, let's, you know, we're happy, you know, yeah. But I didn't do reconstruction. So yeah, I opted not to. The cons outweighed the pros for me.
So my husband, 2 days after our wedding, I gave him power of attorney over me, and while they were there, they found 2 separate masses, and so they did have to go. He had to make that decision, and you gotta love a husband who can really stand next to his wife of 2 days and say, "Yep, cut it off." And I never really felt bad about it, because he was like, "Look, it's a piece of flab. It's not who I love." And I didn't look at the mirror during the whole time because it was just too ugly to see, and the scars were too, like, I don't want to deal with it. I just looked into his eyes, and he kept me positive. But
Any final message? We've got to wrap this up. We'll start with you, Crystal. Any final message to our viewers?
Yeah, I just think it's really important, you know, hearing these stories, and maybe you're not struggling with cancer. I'm sure you know somebody who's struggling with cancer, who's gone through it. It's just, you know, it's so important to do. You're talking about the self breast exams every month, and you know, find a provider, find somebody who you trust. You can go see with any questions and start talking about breast cancer screening that they can do, when you can start your mammos, how often you have to have your mammos, because early breast cancer detection is still the cornerstone of breast cancer control, in addition to, you know, reducing our risk with lifestyle and other things like that. So, you know, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to kind of take the next step, and don't be afraid of what the results will be, because there are so many people here to support you, and now there's so many options available on Guam for treatment, which is amazing.
Christy, any final comments?
Just again, stay strong, and you know, Guam is such a small island. You know, one way or the other, we know somebody who's battling cancer, whatever cancer it may be. You know, and no matter if you know, you don't know them, you still feel the support. You know, you'll understand and guide them and help them any way you could. I mean, that's always me. I just want to make sure that I can help them, even though I can't physically. I mean, I'm not in their pain right now at the moment. But yeah, just stay strong.
My message to anyone going through it is laugh. Look at what you have to live for and concentrate on what you have to live for. And don't look back and say, why me? I remember when we were diagnosed, my parents were embarrassed, like, you never talk about cancer. Go ahead, whatever. You didn't do anything to get that cancer. And just know that you have an amazing group of people on Guam that love and support you, and amazing medical facilities that are taking good care of you. And laugh. And keep that laughter. Watch happy movies and know that you have a lot to live for.
Zena.
For me, it's keep strong, keep fighting, believe in God, prayers, love, and support from your family and friends. That's what helped me get through it.
Well, thank you, ladies, for sharing and inspiring. Stay tuned. Our Think Pink edition continues after the break.